On the phone with us right now is former Detroit Police Chief James Craig, good friend of the Mojo in the Morning Show. And Chief,
I'm glad to have you on because my first question when all this started breaking loose on Friday was, weren't there people just weren't we watching them? Like, didn't somebody have eyes on this family from the beginning of this investigation? But apparently not.
Hey, Mojo. First, let me thank you for allowing me to come on your show. And also, as I like to start, I had a chance to talk about this tragedy nationally. And my prayers go out to the Oxford High School family, certainly everybody in that community. And I want to say one other thing is I want to applaud the phenomenal work by law enforcement, Oakland County Sheriff's, Oxford Police Department, my old department, DPD, and then the U.S. Marshals for a coordinated effort. But to your specific concern, it's something I heard reported by the undersheriff early on. He was very concerned that there was no coordination between the Oakland County District Attorney's Office and the Sheriff's Office, and it appeared, again, I'm based on what I'm hearing, that she went out and did her press conference, and so I got to tell you, I've dealt with a lot of high-profile cases during my time as chief. The Wayne County prosecutor always called and talked to me directly, not someone down in the ranks, and says, look, we're going to announce charging in 24 hours. That way, what I would have directed and what I know the sheriff's office would have directed to put eyes on these suspects. That couldn't have happened because there was no coordination.
So, Chief, you don't watch them all from the start of the shooting because they're not suspects yet. You got to wait until they're considered to be suspects. Now, we in the news media kept hearing over and over again from the prosecutor's office that there was possible charges that were going to be coming up against these guys.
Well, the prosecutor even hinted at that on our show on Thursday. So I thought maybe even from that point, maybe there'd be somebody just keeping tabs on them, you know?
Well, it should have happened that way, but hinting and actually charging are two different things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What she should have said that the case is under review, thereby not alerting the suspects. So the case is under review. We're looking at everything.
Yeah.
Leave it at that, and then call Oakland County and say, I am going to charge in 24 hours.
Yeah.
That pulls the trigger, and it's unfortunate that she didn't coordinate with, or at least it appears that way to me, and certainly confirmed by the undersheriff, that was a mistake. And then they go on a run, and they're hidden. Then you got the guy at the art studio.
Yeah,
couldn't have known.
Talk about that guy.
I mean,
what in that case? By the way, great work by your former officers in being able to spot that car and get a 911 call saying that they're possibly there, and then eventually making that arrest. Talk about that.
Yes,
this guy kind of covering up for the family.
Well, he's covering his back. That's what he's doing right now. No surprise. This was a national news story. And so unless he's in a cave and clueless, but yet it sounds like it was reported, he certainly knew about the shooting. Mm-hmm. And his claim is, well, their lives were endangered because they're the parents. But it's just odd all the way around. But I understand that he certainly wants to, at the direction of his attorney, have a defense. And that's going to be part of the case. I mean, how do you prove that he knew? I mean, you got to prove it in order to charge him. But, that's a stretch. And there may be there's technology, there's ways that we could look into, his devices and find out whether or not. I mean, it's just like they just showed up at his doorstep.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a call made or a text.
Let me ask you this, Chief. There are a lot of parents that listen to the show, a lot of moms taking their kids to school. And there's been over 80 districts in our state that have been closed because of copycat thefts. Now, they did make 7 arrests in those copycat threats.
Yes.
There's a lot of uneased people, including myself and my wife and all the rest of us here that have kids in school, about sending our kids back to school. What do we do to keep our schools safe? Like, I look at what happened, and I think that this was a completely preventable shooting that took place. If this kid would not have been in class on that day when there was a definite alert that there was problem with this kid, that this kid had, had basically said, I'm hearing voices, and he's drawing pictures of guns with blood.
Buying ammunition in class.
And then to hear the superintendent of that district say, we asked the parents to take him home, but they declined. Ask the parents, call the police and have the police take him home.
Mojo, let me tell you, can I say, I'm just going to put my professional hat on.
Sure.
This incident was totally preventable. Let me tell you initially the failures, and then I want to talk to your listeners, give them some reassurances. So this was a classic case. We remember the tragedy out of Florida, Parkland, 17 young people killed. And interesting enough, when I was the chief of police, we had many, many threats following that. And we made some arrests. What we didn't do, unless the threat was an imminent threat, and we had certainly evidence to suggest that this was going to happen, we didn't suggest shutting down the school, but we certainly put in necessary measures to make sure faculty and students were safe, to reassure the parents. And the same thing is happening out in Oakland County and surrounding areas. So are we going to be held hostages by these criminals? That's what I'm going to call them. Senseless criminals who call in and think it's okay. One, we got to make example out of those that we identify and arrest. Make examples out of them, because this is a felony. You can't make a terrorist threat. But going back to the preventable nature of this incident, one, you both said it well. The drawings. This young man was crying out for help. Certainly, there was evidence of some mental psychosis. Something was going on. I mean, it wouldn't take much to put it back on the parents alone and say, well, they wanted the child back in school. No, it doesn't work that way. What happens, school administration, and so you got a line-level employee, i.e. the counselor, maybe a teacher, because I understand there was a drawing that a teacher saw the day prior.
Yes.
These line-level employees have one thing to do: report it up their chain of command. And I'm talking a little military, but talk to the school administrator. We got this thing. We have some concerns. The school administrator then gives a clear directive. Let's get the sheriff's office over here, or Oxford PD here. And that kid is not going back to class.
Mm-hmm.
The police department comes in and takes this young man in for an evaluation. He does not go back to class. So there are a lot of issues we don't know about this situation. Did the parents even know prior to the school bringing it to their attention that he was having some kind of mental health issue? Don't know that. Don't know the answer to that. Because a Friday before the shooting, they give him a birthday gift, a gun, but that's giving benefit of the doubt. They didn't know. We wouldn't give someone suffering from mental illness a weapon and then have indications that he was going to engage in something tragic. And then after the shooting incident, if my timeline is right, the mom sends a text out to her son and says, don't do it.
Yeah, which
what would make her say, don't do it?
Which the shooting, they say, took place at like 12:50 something, and that text was timestamped after 1 o'clock. So she heard the news of a shooting at that moment.
Right. And then the father then goes to the house, looking for the gun, but yet he's got a backpack on where the gun was concealed.
Yeah.
He's not checked. But the main issue here is you can't allow the child back into the classroom. He gets immediately transported for an evaluation by local law enforcement, and the school to suggest, well, the parents had a choice not to let him go back to class. Doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Parkland, which is not a direct parallel because the situations were different, but that Florida school shooting, just 2 weeks ago, they paid out to dozens of families a settlement of a lawsuit because the FBI's failure to act on tips. Like weeks before the shooting, they had been hearing about him and all the problems, and he was going to have, shoot the place up, and they let it go. So I'm sure there will be a lot of investigations in the years to come here. where we failed, because in 2021 it seems we should know to take every threat more seriously. And the fact that the kid's backpack wasn't searched by parents or administration.
Kids are getting kicked out of school for making a gun with their hand and doing that. This kid is drawing pictures of a gun and telling people.
He's calling out for help.
Yeah. And there
many of these individuals who engage in this behavior, there are always signals. And, it's cliche. You see something, say something. Well, I think the one thing the Parkland School did well is they went into the protocols of an active shooter because they've discussed it, they've trained for it. The failure, as I see it, it's not just on the parents making a decision to pull that child out of class. The failure is on that school district.
Yeah.
Because they should have immediately, if that counselor was incapable of making a decision, then it should have gone up to the principal or another school administrator to say, look.
And they have a police liaison there that should have been also brought in, right?
Exactly, and that's the thing. Fortunately, they did have an armed police officer on campus. There's been a movement around the country in some places to take armed police officers out of the school, which, as we can see, that's not a good idea. Yeah. But they got there quickly. They were able to, probably save many more lives because law enforcement was on campus. They were able to detain him without incident. Had it not been for that, this would have been even probably, in my estimation, a much worse situation. Much worse.
Chief Craig, I appreciate you going on with us, and you gave us a lot of time here, and thank you for your expertise on this, and always a friend of the show. Good to have you on here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, great to be on. Thank you all. Take care.
Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you, okay?
And same to you and your families.
Detroit, former Detroit Police Chief James Craig giving us some insight on the shooting situation and then the aftermath of what looked like just a kind of a mess on Friday and Saturday. But the parents and the shooter are in the Oakland County Jail, and Sheriff Bouchard spoke about their situations.
They are not speaking to us, any of them, and they are all in my jail, all segregated in separate cells and constantly monitored.
Just an unbelievable situation.